Delaying the inevitable is just going to make things worse eventually. Right now, with all the economic relief happening, a lot of people are still getting further and further behind. So in this video, let's talk about what all the programs are that are coming out right now and how they're going to lead to things falling apart all at once instead of gradually. Hey everybody, it's Magic Prepper, and today we're talking about how delaying the inevitable in this whole situation and this whole crisis we've been dealing with is just going to make things worse eventually in the long run. We're watching the slow decline into the bottom of the pit right now, and it's being slowed down due to economic relief programs that are being put into place to try to stop things from falling apart chaotically like they would have already if those programs weren't in place. And of course, yes, government has some function in the sense of trying to keep the people from descending into chaos. However, we know that these programs are eventually going to run out. You always eventually run out of other people's money. So if you're preparing for things to fall apart and you feel like it might all happen at once now, just instead of a gradual decline, then hit the subscribe button below because this is what's happening and we need to keep an eye on it, okay? So the eviction moratorium was extended. We all know that the eviction moratorium was coming up and we were very concerned about what was going to happen to people around the country in the sense of losing their homes. Well, it's been extended to June 30th by the CDC, saying that it's still too contagious out there for people to be losing their homes. Well, interesting. 20 million households are affected by these moratoriums. That's households, not people. So if you think of the average house, even just let's say having 2 people in it, that's 40 million people affected. And I'm sure that number is actually much higher, but what's going on is that these people are being extended further and further into debt they'll never be able to afford to pay back. There's so much back rent due right now that people are never going to be able to catch back up. So all they're doing is delaying the inevitable for these people to finally fall out of where they are now and not really have a direction or any plan of where to go. The other side of the situation, by extending these moratoriums, is extending and stretching even thinner the landlords who are anticipating these tenants being able to pay their rent in order to pay whatever bills they may have. Contrary to popular belief, a lot of landlords still have mortgages on the properties that they're renting out. So those landlords are either somehow still paying that bill and incurring a lot of losses, or I'm sure some landlords are just as far behind as their renters are in the sense of paying the bill. So this is going to affect even more people than just the ones who live in these residences, okay? Not every landlord is a giant corporation that owns homes or owns apartment buildings or condos or anything like that. Some landlords are people who just bought 1 or 2 investment properties and are still paying a mortgage off on those properties. So we can see this affecting more and more people as it trickles down to the rest of the people involved with anything related to the real estate market, okay? So we already know that's coming. June 30th is where it's been extended. I wouldn't be surprised if it got extended again at that point because the writing's on the wall. Putting people out on the streets and taking homes away from people in those kind of numbers, we're talking 20 million households, is not going to end well. So keep that in mind, okay? Moving on from there, we're talking about the fact that unemployment assistance has also been extended. It's been extended, I believe, with some of the relief programs are into place all the way to Labor Day or September 6th, okay? So what does that mean? Well, a lot of the unemployment benefits are now adding an additional $300 per week of federal assistance for those unemployment programs that are state by state. So a lot of people who didn't qualify before the pandemic do qualify now and are receiving those unemployment benefits, and they're being extended further and further out, okay? So pandemic unemployment assistance, okay, for gig workers who were not necessarily able to get unemployment before all of this happened, their unemployment assistance is being extended up to, well, let's see here, 86 weeks in some states, okay? 86 weeks. Now I'm checking my notes because I don't want to say this the wrong way, but that is a really long time. It's actually longer than 1.5 years for someone to be able to just stay on those unemployment benefits who was a gig worker before. And what they mean by gig worker is basically someone who was self-employed, maybe doing 1099 forms and going around maybe doing handyman work, maybe they're a musician, something along those lines, okay? So those people never qualified for unemployment before. Now they can be on it for more than 1.5 years And who knows really how well we're keeping up on the fact of whether or not those people are looking for employment or whatever might be happening, okay? Moving on from there, the pandemic emergency compensation or emergency unemployment compensation, okay, the PEUC, okay, I'm trying to remember all these. Anyway, that has been extended to 53 weeks now. So people on that program who were your average employee who lost their job or maybe lost a lot of their income, not their job completely, but maybe a lot of their hours were cut, they now can be on that program for up to 53 weeks, okay? And if you're an individual, your first $10,200 per year of unemployment benefits is non-taxable or has a tax waiver, okay? That is crazy. We are looking at and witnessing universal basic income right before our eyes without it being labeled that way. Now, of course, all the people who are receiving these programs most likely need them, and a lot of people are hurting very badly, and this continues to spiral out of control. So these unemployment benefits and these extensions and these additional pay in the sense of $300 are basically keeping those people afloat just a little bit longer until everyone figures out what to do next, okay? And there's a lot of people who are out there feeling like some of the progress in the medical realm is going to reopen the economy and get everybody back on their feet and back to work right away, but that's just not how this is all going to play out, unfortunately, because too much damage has been done. So basically what's happening is there's a safety net being put into place to keep chaos from spiraling out of control, because not only is everybody about to lose where they live, but then everybody's not able to work and make more money to help dig themselves out of the hole they're already in, and that keeps getting deeper and deeper. Understand, I completely see that a lot of people need this assistance, and I'm not here to say that they do or they don't. I'm not here to say that they shouldn't receive it. What I'm saying is that it's pushing that negative further and further. That's what I'm saying when I brought up the point of delaying this inevitable situation is making it worse, because every month that goes by that people are either relying solely on unemployment benefits or relying on the fact that they're not able to be evicted from their home is just one more month of bills stacking up and one more month of the basically branching of people around those people that are also losing whatever income they're losing by not having that employee at work or not having the rent for the property that that person has a mortgage on or whatever it might be. So it is a snowball effect, and it's going to keep happening, okay? The fourth stimulus check situation is very unlikely. It's not something that everyone's putting out there right now. It's like, oh, another 1,400's coming your way. But they are still putting a lot of government federal aid out there. And soon enough, you're going to have a new child tax credit coming your way, okay? The enhanced child tax credit is going to give families $300 per child up to 6 years old and $250 per child from 6 to 17 years old for a year. And they're trying to start that in July. It will most likely be delayed. But either way, we're talking about a year of people just getting money for having kids. Now understand, that's another way to try to keep the chaos from unfolding, and it's also another way to try to keep people afloat, or at least at the minimum, paying their bills and maybe avoiding some desperation. Understand, people will eventually become desperate and things will become more and more desperate. You can't just keep handing out government money and expect it to solve all the problems. We all know that never works. And eventually you run out of someone else's money and the taxes are coming. Understand, the taxes are going to go up and they're going to figure out clever new ways for us to pay the bill for all of this relief that's happening now. So even if you're receiving unemployment benefits and you're receiving stimulus checks and you're getting all this money from the government, you're eventually going to pay that back tenfold most likely, because those taxes are on their way, because the government knows just as well as you or I do that you can't just keep paying out money that doesn't exist. And that's exactly what is happening. And this is why everyone needs to understand this whole dark winter conversation that we had last year about the winter of 2020 and into 2021. I don't know anymore if that's actually the dark winter they were referring to. If you look at how these different relief efforts are being put into extensions, and how June 30th and September 6th, and then a year of child support basically from the government, you can start to see a pattern that they're going to keep pushing things back as far as they can in order to try to keep the peace for as long as possible. They know that when desperation reaches a high and people are no longer able to eat or have a roof over their head or pay any of their bills, that's when things start to fall apart very quickly. And that's when you start to see more and more unrest. And this unrest will be extremely negative because it won't be gathered around a singular cause. It will be gathered around the fact that the leadership has failed the people and that they're angry and they want their food and they want their home and they want their normalcy of life back. And that is where things are heading. So you can see why this dark winter situation might actually be the winter of 2021 to 2022, because all these moratoriums and all this unemployment and everything else that's being handed out right now might dry up around that time. So you can expect more extensions. You can expect more programs like the Enhanced Child Tax Credit Program to come around, but it's just delaying the inevitable. And understand that a lot of times these are scraps from the table to try to keep the people at the bottom from doing anything extreme. And that's just generally how this whole system works. But unfortunately, it's not going to work much longer, because it's no longer about the people at the bottom. It's no longer about a certain group of people that, fit the bill for impoverished or something along those lines. Now it's about the average person. The average American this year had financial strife. The average American this year lost their job or had to file unemployment for the very first time, or took government aid in a way they never expected to ever have to. Or the average American might be living in an apartment or in a home right now that they haven't paid for months, and they have zero way or understanding of how to get back on top of those mounting bills. They don't just go away, they keep coming. And the people who are drowning in that debt and that knowledge of knowing that they have no way of ever paying it back, those are average people. And that's what's happening right now. So I wanted to bring this to your attention, because delaying the inevitable is never a great solution. We all know about the term, you got to rip the Band-Aid off. Sometimes you literally have to rip the Band-Aid off, because otherwise it just makes the bleed out take that much longer. I don't think that's a great medical analogy, but luckily I'm not a doctor. So if any of you have anything else to add about how this whole delaying the inevitable using economic relief programs is going to probably put us into a worse situation, maybe come winter, leave it in the comments below. These are things we need to talk about and we need to watch out for. We also need to be aware that, let's say you're in a dire situation and you really can't get out of it and you need this eviction moratorium just to keep that roof over your head until you can figure out your next step. Understand that you need to look into the programs that are becoming available to you, and you need to look into those eviction moratoriums in order to protect yourself, because without doing some legwork and without actually filing certain forms or documents, you might not actually be protected just because it's what's being talked about on the news. So understand that as well, because I'm not trying to judge anybody's situation based on what's happening to you right now. A lot of what's happened this year was out of our control, no matter who you are. I know people who used to make lots of money who no longer do, and I know people who never really had any money that even have less now. So that is just the situation. It's nothing about anything personal for anybody. So you got to do what you have to do, and understand that's going to take a little bit more effort than just waiting for someone to come knocking on your door or sending you a letter, okay? So just wanted to bring that to your attention. Do not delay the inevitable, because we will see maybe in the next 7 or 8 months or so what that's going to look like. Without anything else to say about it, that's going to be it for Magic Prep.